Greetings, travelers, and welcome to the latest Tempo Wild Meta Snapshot for Voyage to the Sunken City. This report comes almost immediately after yet another balance patch, this time including 3 nerfs and a whopping 17 buffs targeting cards in Standard. The close timing of this report to the changes means that many of our ratings can be considered tentative as we wait for the meta to settle. Since these nerfs and buffs were intended for the Standard format, it's likely that most of these changes will fly under the radar in Wild, but there are a handful of these changes that will have a serious impact on our format. Chief among these is the nerf to Drek'thar, which now only summons 1 minion from the deck rather than 2. Drek'thar was a linchpin for several powerful decks in Wild, including top-tier format staples like Overload Shaman and Minion Innerfire Priest, so accordingly decks relying on Drek'thar as a centerpiece have fallen in our tier list. The other nerfs have an impact too, with the multi-strike nerf affecting the recently up-and-coming Wild version of Aggro Demon Hunter, and the Dragonbane Shot nerf likely knocking Questline Hunter out of ladder viability altogether. As for the buffs, most of these changes affect cards that are virtually unknown in Wild, so it's difficult to predict if any of them will have an impact at all. Only 2 of these cards, Wildpaw Knoll and Shadowcloth Needle, have seen any serious play in previous decks. The Wildpaw Knoll change does restore the power level of the old combo with Maestra of the Masquerade and Secret Passage into Knoll, so we're bound to see some experimentation there. Beyond that, there are no obvious game changers to report on. Accordingly, this edition of the tier list doesn't have many overall changes from the previous version. We still consider Pirate Rogue and even Warlock to be the format's top decks to beat, with Pirate Rogue standing as the most popular aggressive deck in the game, and even Warlock standing as the most powerful and flexible option for control. Right behind them in tier 2 we have several other ladder mainstays such as Cthulhu Druid, Freeze Shaman, Mech Mage, and Mech Paladin. The 2 mech decks are particularly popular at sub-legend ranks, and along with Rogue, they make the Diamond ranks extremely aggressive. If you're climbing to Legend late in the season, be prepared to deal with the onslaught of Rogues, Paladins, and Mages. For Legend rank grinders, as usual, you can expect aggro to taper off as you climb, with more combo decks taking their place, like Mechathune Warlock, Togwaggle Druid, Pillager Rogue, and Quest Mage. It's worth noting that the decks affected by the Drek'thar nerf, like Overload Shaman and Minion Innerfire Priest, are still around at this level, but they're occupying the bottom of our tier 2 while they rebuild after the nerf. Both of these decks can operate without Drek'thar, but it's still too early to tell how they will recover. Altogether, the meta is still settling in after the balance patch, so if any new meta breakers emerge from the nerfs and buffs, you're not going to see them in this report. We're keeping a close eye on the meta as it develops, and we'll be able to tell shortly if Rogue and Warlock can stay on top. In the meantime, be sure to check out our full Wild Meta report on our website, tempostorm.com, and as always, thank you for watching.